I started attending university without having any idea what I wanted to become. So I started out at Brigham Young University, and I started just taking classes I was interested in. So art history and architectural history and sociology and psychology and philosophy, and I was just having a great time being a liberal arts student with no occupation in mind at all. So I did that the first year, I did it the second year, sophomore year, third year, and finally they sent me a counselor, and he said, what's your major? And I said, I don't have a major, I'm just taking classes that subjects I'm interested in. And he said, well, you can't graduate in nothing, you have to pick something. So they gave me an aptitude test, and I was potentially apt in any number of subjects, so that wasn't that helpful. It came time to register for the next semester. I'm standing in line, this is when you pulled cards manually, and they had come out with a new 2-inch thick catalog of courses. And I'm standing and I'm reading through this, and I see this new department, environmental design department, and it had an architecture major. And I thought, architecture? I've always loved art and design. In fact, when I think of education, I think of it in two ways, formal and informal. And before becoming a college university student, I had worked in construction summers with my father, who was a builder. So I thought, well, I've got this construction background and I love art and design. Together, that's what architecture is about. Why don't I study architecture? So it really happened at the end of my junior year as a university student. I picked that as an educational subject, and it just went from there. In high school, when they issued assignments to do term papers and everybody groaned and complained, I thought, oh great, I get to research and write about something, cool. So my first employment after BYU, well then I went to the U of U, that's graduate education. Went to the State Historical Society, and for 3 years I was a state historical architect and architectural historian. And that's when I met Wally. We met because Wally was assigned by the firm he was with to work on the Capitol Theater, and I was the historical architect administering the grant. So we met and started working on that project, and in conversation we decided to both leave our current employment and start a new firm. So this was May of 1976, so that would have been what, 86, 96, 06, 45 years ago this month is when we started the firm. So we rented a $30 a month dusty space in the Guthrie Cycle building. We had one client, which was a $300 gas station remodel. We had no clients, basically. We had, other than the work we had done for others, we had no resume, no portfolio. We were 29 and 30 years old at the time, and that's how the firm got started. And we decided to specialize in historic preservation architecture. We thought we'll become the first firm in Utah to make that our core practice. I think at the beginning, the biggest struggle for our small emerging firm was we had no clients. And that was solved quite early on. One of the first projects we went after was the Wheeler Farm restoration. And we competed against Birch Beale and Stephen Baird and other firms, and they were the leading lights in that field at the time, and we were unknown totally. But somehow we got that project, and that entailed a historic structures report, and then restoring the 1875 to early 20th century 75-acre dairy farm of Henry Wheeler. So it included all kinds of preservation projects, all within one complex of buildings. Another early project we got that allowed us to do new construction was Ancestor Square down in St. George. Brooks Pace was the client, and this was 1978 and on. It was a 14-building complex right on the main intersection of St. George. And he had an existing two-story building that he had rented, and we advised him to tear that down and put a 45-degree diagonal pathway into the core of the project and keep 7 historic buildings, and then let us do 7 new buildings out of adobe and pine from Pine Valley, using indigenous local materials. And Brooks went along with all of this. It was very fortunate. 1976 was a bicentennial year, so the Bicentennial Commission had all these little preservation projects all through Utah. We were able to secure a number of those, and so we were able to survive that first year where we had very little income. We hired Ann Floor. She was our first employee. She typed specs on a typewriter. We did all the drawings by hand. There were just the 3 of us. We had both started families by that time, so we had 3 or 4 kids each, and we both lived in old houses that needed renovation. But it worked. We were able to survive that early period. At the beginning, we worked together as a team, and within a few years, we both started developing our own team within the firm, and specializing in different clienteles and different kinds of work. My interest was, I liked marketing a lot and trying to secure new clients. Wally was really good at keeping existing clients happy and getting repeat work from those clients. It's become much more technical. When I took my architectural exams, there were 40 hours of exams, 5 days. And one exam was the big design exam. Started at 8 in the morning, ended at 8 at night. For 12 hours, you designed a building. They gave you a little booklet that had the programming criteria, and by the end of the day, you had to have a set of drawings, floor plans, sections, elevations, outlines of mechanical systems, and all of that. That was all done by hand. It was all hand drafting. And I have to admit that I never got interested in doing CAD drafting myself. So by the time I retired, I had never drawn a single line with a computer. But now we have OSHA, we have LEED, we have to have buildings that are sustainable and non-toxic and energy efficient. We have to have buildings that are handicap accessible. We have to have buildings that have energy audits, done, and building envelope studies, and we have all kinds of safety requirements. They have to be earthquake resistant, fire resistant. So there are lots of technical overlays on what, especially institutional architecture, that really didn't exist so much before. When we started, there were no calculators. People were still using slide rules. We didn't have cell phone. All of the new technology that is developed has, I think, changed architecture so that it's become a very technical practice. What I think has been missing or has been lost is the focus on design, the visual design. I don't see a lot of beautiful new buildings. I see some very strange, I say architectural leprosy. I can even mention some specific buildings that I think are horrible new buildings that are going to stand for a long, long time because they're so well built. As you know, I'm co-authoring a book on Richard Karl August Kletting, the German immigrant architect that came to Utah in 1884 and worked his way up to winning a competition to do the Utah State Capitol building. And that building has been rated one of the top 3 most beautiful state capitals in the country. And it's an exceptional building, really. The outside, the inside, the attention to detail, the use of materials, and now that it's been restored, even more so. I've been fortunate to have designed a lot of different kinds of buildings, historic building restorations, lots of historic structures reports, studies, lots of new buildings of all kinds. In fact, this morning I tried to make a list of building types I've worked in 70 different building types just in the last 10 years, and that doesn't include the first 30 years. But in terms of what I'm most proud of, maybe it's helping Wally and you and the others build the firm from 2 people to whatever it is now, 75 people maybe. I have to express my gratitude to my 40-some-year partner, Wally Cooper. Wally and I started this without any understanding of where we would end up. I've often wondered, for both of us, what would have happened had we not met. What would our careers have been like? I think this is one of those sort of Stockton and Malone partnerships where we each brought something different to the partnership, but something compatible. We saw things the same way. We got along really well. We worked together wonderfully, and it created something that, had we not met and created that partnership, the history of Utah architecture would have been different than it turned out to be. For me, it was, and Wally too, never about the money. We never even thought of that as a motive or a criteria for why we do this. We practiced architecture because we had a passion for it. We loved what we were doing, and that's what drove us forward year after year, project after project, difficulty after difficulty. So I think if you decide to do it, you should do it because you love it. When you think about a typical career of anybody, you start out maybe when you're 20, you go to 65, that's 45 years. You work 2,000 hours a year, that's 90,000 hours. You're going to spend 90,000 hours or more doing your profession. You better love it. You better really care about it. And if you do, then just stick with it, because it's not easy at the beginning. But once you make that commitment, I think the rewards are there. Not just the financial rewards, but the other kinds of things, the soul-satisfying, spirit-elevating kinds of rewards that you get by designing good buildings, satisfying clients, being a community builder, all of those values and virtues that architects espouse and practice. I think feed the part of you that's the most important.